Story 1. Duolingo. I do not want to live without my cheese slicer. The cats are wearing shoes. The vegetables do not like vegetarians. Sometimes Duolingo, my smartphone language app, comes up with strange sentences. It always made me laugh. But lately, there's been a weird glitch with the app. I've been refreshing my German. My mother is a retired German teacher and spoke it to me growing up. However, now at 29, after years of almost no contact, after I got married, she says she's not homophobic. But gee, what a coincidence that she started acting distant after I married a woman. Then finally somewhat patching things up. I have forgotten a lot. I don't want to lose my knowledge, and German can be useful for work. I decided to take the placement test, then start from the basics again. My understanding is great, but I can't spell and have little grasp of grammar or the gender of items. Everything in German has either a masculine, feminine, or neutral gender. It's a pain in der Arsch. I think it's coal. Anyway, the weird glitch I have been experiencing has to do with the questions that require one to speak in the language being studied. The app works fine, as does my microphone. I get the answers right, but I don't think whatever the app is having me say is ordinary German. My skills might not be where they should be, but I know what German sounds like. This sounds similar, yet at the same time very different. It is written out in the same alphabet as German, but sounds older, rougher. I have recognized the word Valhalla a few times. The vowel sounds are different as well. My pronunciation is getting better, though still this is confusing. I wrote a note to the app maintenance, said I think there's a problem with the German course. Some of the speaking practice questions aren't in German, but another language, possibly Nordic in origin, and I sent them a screenshot of one such question. The response was quite quick. We didn't put that in there. Are you sure your app is up to date and you're not using a hacked version or playing a joke for the internet? I guess I should have waited until after April Fool's Day to send in the report of this weird glitch. But since I don't want to lose my 268-day streak of practicing, and the rest of the program is fine, I have kept using Duolingo. However, I did send a screenshot and recording of the app pronouncing the weird words for me to my brother, who has traveled a lot, and to a German professor at my former university, hoping he would share it around with professors from other languages as well. While I waited for responses and kept at it, weird things have happened. Okay, global warming has been causing weird weather patterns lately, but whenever I practice outdoors and say one of the weird phrases, I hear thunder or see lightning, and often a storm starts soon after. If I am working on it while walking or working out, I seem to hear a second set of footsteps behind me. A separate breath. This was unnerving, of course, so I tried to stop using the app, though I am on the loss of my by now to 180-day streak. It didn't work. I lost some time the next day, and when I, for lack of a better word, woke up, I found myself in the middle of a lesson. I can't seem to stop using it. And today I saw something strange. I was practicing it and came across one of the strange phrases while sitting on my patio, looking at a field in the park across the street. There was a clap of thunder that shook my eyes in their sockets, and I saw a huge, half-formed gray figure come down from the sky, but it vanished a moment later as I stumbled over how to pronounce the last word. Just a few minutes ago, I heard back from both my brother and the professor. My brother thinks the glitch is just Icelandic being mixed in, and after I sent him more of them, he still thinks that, though he's confused by the total absence of modern words and what is supposed to be a 21st century language app, the professor had shared the glitch around until finally it reached a medieval history colleague of his. I received an email with both of them copied onto it. It's Old Norse, and given the strange happenings and the fact that I can't seem to put Duolingo down, I am afraid of what will happen when I finally get the pronunciation right. Story 2. Glitch. I used to use the computer a lot. I would stay up late just surfing the web, playing games I'd beaten long ago. I guess it became an obsession. It got so bad that I would stay up till midnight just doing nothing. I tried to stop. Sometimes I could manage to go to sleep early, but lately I've never been in bed before 11. It's weird, I never feel like this during the day. I can handle not being on the computer in the morning. I get lots of stuff done. Cleaning up, studying, pretty much being a productive person. But now things have gotten worse. I started feeling really bad after going to sleep. It would hit me while I was on the computer that my eyes were really burning. Only when they started stirring up would my gaze be broken from the screen and realize I hadn't been blinking. Weirder things started happening when I blinked too. It started out harmless. Web pages would load real slowly. My mouse would freeze. Programs would start ending randomly. Nothing actually out of the ordinary. I would just refresh the page, reconnect the mouse, and press end now. But it got worse. I got on the computer one night to find it was completely shut down. I always suspend the computer when I log off, so this struck me as odd. When it started up again, it entered safe mode. After fiddling with the settings, I finally got it working again. For maybe 2 weeks things went on without a fuss. I was browsing a blog, just slowly reading and scrolling down when a picture showed up. It was one of those awful pictures of a dead body, like someone who had been in a car crash or explosion. It wasn't a pop-up or anything. It was part of the blog. I was a bit concerned. The blog made no mention of this and had never used pictures before. I scrolled down so the picture was gone, and the blog continued like nothing strange was up. I stopped going on the blog eventually. More and more gruesome pictures were showing up. I commented on one entry about it and was met with confusion. No one else was complaining. I wrote it off as some in-joke to get rid of all the noobs. Other sites I frequent are taking up this shock picture trick. It's becoming a real pain. I'm starting to fear clicking on every link. I closed Internet Explorer today to find my background had been changed to another horrible photo. I couldn't help but recognize this one. It was one I saw in Driver's Ed of a particularly gruesome drunk driving incident. After resetting my background, deleting the picture I had apparently saved to my hard drive, cleaning up, and defragging my hard drive, I opened the recycling bin to get rid of it once and for all. I was a bit stunned. My bin was full of all sorts of random things I knew I never saved. There were porn sites, illegal downloads, pictures, emails, and other files with extensions I wasn't familiar with. I cleared them all and decided I'd get some outside help. I started looking online for any similar incidents. With no results, I called Geek Squad, my dad, and even brought the computer into major dealers for a checkup. One large bill later, no problems were detected. Most even commented on how well kept the computer was. The pictures stopped appearing, but I almost wish they were still the problem. My computer now displays everything almost as it should be, but now, whenever a person is displayed, their eyes are gouged out. It looked like a crappy paint job at first, but they became more and more real. I tried showing it to a friend, but the computer worked fine when he was around. I finally let my friend have the computer. He always commented on what a great machine it was when he was over. I'm glad to be done with it. I had just bought a much more updated one, and after starting it up, I was very happy to see everything working normally. I decided not to transfer all the data from my old computer to the new one. Happy to be done with it. I closed a brand new model. It's only 9:30. And I turn on the television, knowing that I can get a good night's sleep after Futurama. I lay back and turn up the volume to hear the opening theme. I recognize the unique little blurb they have, like what they do with The Simpsons. This is the infamous dog episode. I get ready to feel sad when my heart jumps. Fry's eyes are missing. Story 3. The True Legend of Friday the 13th. Slow is the smolder of fire, igniting in flesh. The skin cracks and dries and powders to ash, incinerating extremities long before flame penetrates to vital systems. The eyes will boil from the skull and cartilage will melt and run like wax. The insulated brain will be protected all the while, still cognizant of the excruciating agony. Bones will splinter next, molten marrow liquefying like hot lead before exploding in shrapnel to puncture the insides. The body will attempt to cool its essential organs by redirecting blood flow to the skin, where it will evaporate into great clouds of steaming red. Finally, the heat will become too intense, and the organs will start to swell and explode one by one, sending supernovas of anguish through the dying victim. The onlookers thought that grandmother Jacques de Molay was long dead when dry words spoke out of the inferno for a final time. DSA QUI a tort at a patch. ILV a beated arriver malhere so QUI nuisant condemns a mort. God knows who is wrong and has sinned. Soon a calamity will occur to those who have condemned us to death. The legend of Friday the 13th began on October 13th, 1307. The Knights Templar, a prominent Catholic military order during the Crusades, was betrayed by King Philip IV, who brought false charges against the Templar in order to seize their wealth. The Templar were arrested en masse, forced under torture to confess to blasphemous crimes against the Church. Grandmother Jacques de Molay was burned alive, but not before he spat the curse of his dying words. Within a year, both Pope Clement and King Philip IV of France, who sentenced the Templar, were dead. The curse did not end with their death, however. A number of Templars made the decision to save their own lives by fabricating lies about their comrades, assisting King Philip in condemning the order. One of these cowards, named Jean Maillet, was even richly rewarded from the Templar coffers for his false and treacherous testimonies. Fearing repercussions, Jean Maillet fled with his new wealth to Scotland, far enough to escape the punishment for his crimes, but not far enough to be safe from grandmother Jacques' final curse. Within a year, Jean would be dead as well. although not before he fathered a son to inherit his legacy. 710 years since that fateful day, Yam Mele's descendants have since spread across the globe, carrying with them what remains of the Grandmaster's curse. I myself am afflicted, and I am writing this now to warn all those who may also be descendants without knowing it. It will begin on a Friday, October 13th, an itching, burning sensation in your nose. Perhaps nothing more than a cold at first, but wait to act at your own risk. The burning will spread down your chest, making it feel tight and difficult to breathe. You'll sweat like you have a fever, and your body will start to feel warm as the blood evacuates your vital organs. Once you've reached this point, it's already too late. The fire has lit inside you, and no medicine or artifice will be able to save you from your fate. This phenomenon has been recorded as spontaneous combustion in many accounts across the globe. It will only be minutes from here before you are reduced to ash, choking all the while in the noxious fumes of your own burning flesh. You who bear this curse have strayed too far from God for him to save you. I don't want you to worry, though, because there is another who listens to the desperation of a midnight prayer. Do not concern yourself with his nature. It is enough to know that you are in need and he has the power to help. Pray with all your heart as the fire rages inside you, and when the voice answers, you must do as it says. The voice will tell you what ingredients you need to gather. Blood is common, so it may be wise to have some ready before the symptoms begin. Animal or human sacrifices are less common, but it all depends on the strength of the bloodline which ties you to the Grandmaster's curse. Once you have followed the instructions, you'll notice the pain begin to subside within a few minutes. There will be another presence in the room at this point, but that's an unavoidable side effect of the ceremony. Do not try to look at the presence. Do not talk to it unless it talks to you, and even then do not give it any information about yourself. If you are careful and lucky, it will leave you alone. The curse will be lifted, and whatever happens after that, well, at least it won't be happening to you. Story 4. Nightmares. I used to think nightmares were fun, so I asked for more. They were the only source of excitement in my endless rut of a life. I never used to get nightmares, and for that I should have been grateful. I wasn't. I wished for more. I craved the adrenaline and the pounding of my heart as my eyes flew open. They say be careful what you wish for. They are not lying. The nightmares started to come quicker and much more often. It was small things at first, the things anybody would have. Being chased by wild dogs, being abandoned, or running naked into school. I tired of them quickly. I had no reason to keep myself awake after them. Soon, they began to become more intense. My brain began playing with me. I'd be held down by my throat, unable to breathe, unable to scream, my chest heaving but no air entering my lungs. I'd be torn at my skin coming away like butter. I'd be tied down as those I trusted sliced into me. I began to dream of hell. Then I'd wake, my eyes not quite focusing on anything in my small box room. The purples of my cushions would merge with the cream of my wall, and the giant teddy bear that sat in the corner would blur. But I could breathe. There was no pressure on my throat. I would take in deep lungfuls of air, as if I hadn't breathed for hours. I scratched at my skin to check if it was still there, and it was. I would check my clock, and it would always be the same time. 5 minutes past 3 in the morning became my waking hour. My eyes would try to slide closed, But I couldn't let that happen. Instead, I'd pull myself to the bathroom down the carpeted hall and splash icy water on my face until I was in no danger of sleeping. The sleep deprivation, I concluded, would be better than facing the horrors of the night. I'd go into school like a zombie, and nobody seemed to notice that anything was different. I began to become paranoid. As people walked past me, the memories would come rushing back, invading my mind. She was the one who made the first incision 2 nights ago. He was the one who had his hand over my neck last week, and they were the ones that retrieved the knives in the depths of hell. I pushed everyone away in fear that they would build hell on earth. So I sat alone, excluding myself from the drone of conversation and the inconvenience of life. My nightmares would plague me. Creative writing assessments in English were easy. Just pick a night, and there was a horror story right there. Talks of battles in history shocked others, but barely even struck me as odd. The drawings I did in art made everyone feel nauseous, but seemed quite normal to me. Lessons on LNRE would strike fear into my very soul. Of all the things I needed, more imagery about Hades was not one of them. Those lessons began to creep into my dreams, too. A human being can go 14 days without sleep before they died. The record for days without sleep is 11 days. A record which is held by a university student from America. My record is 5 days. I started hallucinating so horrifically on day 5. I couldn't take it anymore. The susurrus whispers began first, those voices assuring me I was crazy, that I was worthless and doomed to be ended by my own mind. Next, it was the high-pitched, sempiternal squealing. It sounded like nails running down a chalkboard or a knife scraping against a plate, only twice as high and 5 times as loud. Then inanimate objects began to turn clinquant, the spots of brightness emitting from plants, and pictures blinded me. I knew that these were merely chimerical. But can a schizophrenic stop having hallucinations? Neither can someone suffering with extreme sleep deprivation. I decided to suck it up and face the monsters every night. I've been sleeping well. When I say well, I mean I've been getting 6 hours of sleep a night. That's why I know I'm not hallucinating when I see dark figures in my bedroom at night. When I hear the creaking of my door opening, I know it's real. When the piercing screams of tortured souls invade my eardrums, it's actually happening. When I hear the hissed threats that they're coming for me, sadly, I know that's real, too. They say be careful what you wish for. I wished for hell. I got it. It's 5 minutes past 3 in the morning. I can hear them. Story 5, The Boy from Posey Chapel. Going back, I remember it all vividly. My first time at Posey Chapel with a couple of my friends. Nobody was really scared. After all, the sightings were hoaxes and never supported with actual evidence. But being Halloween, something was bound to happen, and something happened indeed, because that night was the start of a string of the most horrifying ones in my existence. We arrived at the chapel, cracking jokes about the myths that were told about it while walking around, aimlessly, not in search of anything specific. After about 5 minutes in our journey, I saw in the midst of the churchyard an all-white figure. From what I could tell, he was near the age of 10, and had no eyes, just black pits where his eyes should have been. I looked at my friends for reassurance that this wasn't just my imagination. This was real. They told me they could see him too, but just vaguely, as he was about a football field away. It was hard to tell what we were looking at, so naturally we strained To get a better look at him, the four of us started to walk slowly toward him, not particularly looking to hurt him in a sort of way. Once we reached a certain point, I instantly felt a sort of connection with him. I was the only one he looked at, considering he had black pits for eyes. The others could see him looking at me intently, and we decided to leave afraid. We got back in the car and waited about 5 minutes before leaving, just to see if anything would happen. Nothing did, but the minute my head hit the pillow that night is when things did started to happen. That first night, Halloween 2014, I had a dream about him, the boy from the chapel. It was all a recap from that night, except everyone's teeth were rotted out or had cavities. These dreams occurred each night for 8 days. Within each dream he would get about 10 yards closer, and the dream would always cut off just as I closed the car door. After 8 nights, the dream had occurred 8 times consecutively, and he was about 20 yards away from me, so we went back to Posey Chapel. The dreams stopped after that visit. January 8th, 2015. I'd been staying at my grandma's that week. As my bathroom was being renovated, I was on the couch where I had been sleeping. This night had started as an otherwise normal one. I was casually browsing my Facebook and listening to a podcast with one earbud in. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary, but then the lights and TV went out and I heard scratching from the basement. It started coming up the stairs and gradually got louder and louder until I thought I was going to lose it. Then, abruptly, silence. I looked up toward the stairway door to see what it was, but saw nothing. Questioning it, I turned back, and I got a glance down the main hallway where I saw a streak of white. Terrified, I was hesitant to look back, but I seemed drawn to it. So I looked despite my gut feeling, and there he was, the boa without eyes. He stood there with intent, but lack of emotion for at least 20 minutes, and then he disappeared, or so I'd thought. I looked outside my window, and there he was, hanging from the barren tree. I thought I was going insane, hallucinating. My brother claimed to not be able to see him, so why could I? I snapped a picture of the tree from inside, sending it to the group chat I was in. Nobody saw anything except what they thought was snow, but I knew it was him. Gathering up my courage and going against my own gut, I went outside to take a different picture, this time with the flash on. I only cracked open the door to do so, as I didn't want to leave the comfort of the house, no matter if he could get inside. This time he was sitting in the tree rather than hanging from a noose. That was what struck me as extremely odd. I took the picture despite his change position and rushed inside, sending it to my group chat again. This time they could see him. He stood out against the snow as a lighter, blurrier white. After this, I felt compelled to go back outside and face him, ask him what he wanted from me. So once again, I gathered up my courage and went back into the freezing winter night. I looked up at him in the tree and yelled, "What do you want from me?" 10 seconds of silence filled the chilly air, and then, "Please come back." Story 6. Sick. I slept fine last night. Didn't sleep so well Sunday, though. It was my own fault, really. I did tell him he was welcome and if he pleased. My dream began like one of those horror games you might see, like Silent Hill or Alone in the Dark. It was night out and almost pitch black. I was holed up in some building, hiding from something or waiting. I peeked out. The door was glass, and had some rule stickers on it. I suppose I was in a corner store. Upon looking out, I see a deserted street, lighted by a few dim street lamps. The street was dead empty, dead silent. I seemed to be in the middle of a city, yet there was nothing. I tentatively opened the door, creeping out into the cold night. Ever have one of those dreams where you can feel what's happening? This was one of those dreams. I turned left out the door and began walking. The street was sloped, and I was going down. Suddenly I stopped in front of a building. Looking to my left at it, it seemed like a small house, not one like you'd see in the city. It was in shambles, a light gray-blue color. I felt the need to go in to see the inside. I crept up to the door and turned the handle. Opening the door, I looked in. There wasn't much but a few boxes, a table, and a bed. I moved silently towards the bed. On it slept a person. I glared down at her for a few moments, her sleeping figure taunting me. I bent down, picked up an object, and swung the brick, ensured that she would not wake up soon. Dropping the bloody, hair-matted brick, a message flashed through my mind, clear as day, a dark, deep, raspy voice speaking through my mind. The sinew will sew together the darkness and nation. I only know of one kind of sinew. It's the stuff inside of you, connected to your muscles and bones, that lets you move the way you can. Looking over to the table, I saw the moonlight glinting off something. I walked over, and there sat a knife placed perfectly in the center, the blade facing away from me. He knew I was coming. He knew he could tell me to do this. He knew I would oblige. I picked up the knife and walked back over to the unconscious form in the bed before me. Her blonde hair was spilled out around her, her head bleeding profusely. I feel now as though I recognized her, but I can't be sure. I tore the sheet off of her and brought the knife down to her, stripping her flesh from bone until the muscles were all visible. I began grabbing at the sinew, slicing at it, and piled it all up. Once I'd gathered all I could, I began wrapping it around itself. It formed a blindfold. I put it on, and all was black, until the darkness was filled with an image. A house far off, silhouetted against the night sky. Atop it was a figure and a dog. The dog howled, and the figure turned towards me. His tattered cowl flapped in a soundless wind. His blazing eyes bored into me, the blood-red beads that were his pupils boring into my soul. He grinned at me, knowing he'd just gotten one step closer to corruption. I began calling him. Like in many dreams, there were things I could not control. My voice was strained, and even though I shouted as loud and hard as I could, the sound traveled mere feet. I woke up soon after that, feeling as though I had not slept at all. And I knew I hadn't. That wasn't sleep. He'd brought me into his world. He'd done so many times before, and he'd watched what I did as I was placed in a deserted carnival, in a school of ravenous creatures waiting to devour me and my closest friend. He's there sometimes, my friend, but I think I know why. I think he's sick too. I looked around and knew where I'd been. I knew what I'd seen. The sinew will sew together darkness and damnation, and he'd shown himself to Emmy. He was no longer what he'd been. A shapeless shadow, a shadow with eyes, one with a cowl and a demon grin, one whose eyes glowed hot with flames, one who spoke to me and caressed my face with clawed, shadowed hands. No, he has a shape now. He's real. He's come so far, there's no way I can get rid of him now. He needs a vessel, and he's chosen me, Besides, everyone is a little sick, even if they don't want to believe it. Story 7. Don't. Don't is a contraction we hear all too much. As a child, it was all I heard. Don't play with this, don't touch that, don't go here, etc. It was my father's favorite word. As I grew older, I stopped taking it seriously. I realized if I did what my father told me not to, everything would turn out better than expected by both him and I. Yet he continued to say it, I suppose by force of habit. At the age of 18 years old, he gave me a necklace. He said that it belonged to my late mother, and at both of their requests I was not to have it until I was 18. It was simple enough, a gold heart locket with a rose engraved on the front. He warned me never to take off, or rather don't take it off was what he said. I never expected I would take it off because it was so beautiful and reminded me of my mother. I wore it everywhere, even to bed and in the shower. As you would expect, one day it disappeared. Devastation filled my heart, followed by confusion. How could it have been lost? I went to bed wearing it last night, and this morning it's vanished. I did not tell my father, as I knew would crush him. This was the biggest mistake I have ever made. Needless to say, I could not sleep that night. The atmosphere of the room felt cold and unwelcoming. The other problem was that my ears started ringing, not the type you experience after a loud concert or after your ears pop, however. It sounded like a high-pitched moaning. I put in earplugs and it stopped. Finally, I fell asleep, but it was not peaceful. I consistently woke in a sweat during the night at least 5 times. There were no dreams I could remember to help me figure out why. When I finally decided to stop trying for sleep, I went for a walk. The moment I stepped outside, I felt worse. Yes, it was dark out because it was 2 in the morning, but I have never seen such a pitch-black sky in my life. The moon and stars did not exist. I brought a lighter with me so I could have a cigarette and try to calm down. The lighter would not catch. I supposed it was out, so I ran back and got matches once outside. I tried them. They did not work either. After this, I noticed not just the sky was pitch black. Everything was. I could not see a thing. It was as if I was standing inside of a four-walled room that was painted black. That is the last thing I remember. I awoke in my bed at 8 o'clock, as I had class at 10 a.m. I was too tired to notice my father was standing over my bed. He screamed, and this is when I noticed him. This scream sounded as if a banshee was being burned with acid. It was the ringing I had heard earlier. This went on for about 10 minutes as I stayed there, paralyzed. This was not due to fear. He cocked his head to the side and smiled. Then he started melting, like a candle that has been lit. While melting, he said, I told you, don't take it off. Now you will die like your mother. With that, the melting thing I called my father walked to my side of the bed. I saw the black again. The blackest of blacks was all I could see. Along with my candle of a father, he, or rather it, said, look what you've done. You took the light from his world, just like your mother. I lived inside of him. I was his evil. I cursed everyone he ever loved, and that lock protected them until they doubted him enough to take it off. Except you. I took it off you myself because I was strong enough. I took him over, and he is no more. You are mine. Headline: Home Tribune News. Father and daughter found dead. Tim and Shelley Norbin were found dead in their home Tuesday night at 12 a.m. In place of ears they had gaping holes, filled with blood and brain matter. There is no current cause of death. Even suicide cannot be considered, as their bodies were deflated. It was as if someone has sucked the life out of them. George Posse found the bodies and stated, "They were such good people and dearest friends of mine. I plan to continue Tim's legacy, as I consider myself almost exactly like him, although maybe I have a darker sense of humor." Bonus stories, Story 1. Dark radiance. It's dark when you don't know where you are or how you've come to be there. Even the simplest things can be supremely frightening. So it was that when Walter awoke, his consciousness confused and hazy, the thing that he fixated on was the darkness, a darkness so thick and oppressive that it could have been a blanket. Perhaps it was, for all that the disoriented boy knew. A quick rustle around his immediate area made it clear that no, he was not bound or covered by anything in particular. It was just dark. He'd been awake for a few minutes, and his eyes hadn't yet adjusted as they normally would. In the back of his mind, Walter rationalized that this must mean that wherever he was had a true and complete absence of light. There was nothing for his eyes to adjust to, so waiting around in the hopes that he'd suddenly be able to see where he was going was a rather pointless endeavor. He rose to his feet unsteadily and reached out to grasp at what a wall. Anything that might have been there to help him launch off of the ground. Nothing met his fingertips, and after an embarrassing moment of swaying, Walter tentatively took a few steps forward. He didn't run into anything, so he continued walking, slowly, and with one hand out to his front and one to his side, just in case. Hours passed as he walked, or at least he assumed that they did. Total darkness, with no exposure to the grounding reference of the sun or moon, made it a bit difficult to figure out exactly how long he'd been in this place. But Walter knew that, logically, if he only kept walking, he would eventually end up somewhere, even if it was a dead end. At least it would be reassuring to have found something concrete in this strange place. Eventually, he is tired. He must have been walking all day or night. Well, whichever. Either way, it's been a long time. He plops down on the ground, falling a bit too quickly, and yelps a bit at the impact. It's then that he realizes that he hadn't tried to speak or call out at all. Until now, this was the first noise he'd made. How silly of him. What if there was someone else around, someone else lost in the darkness that could help him? Cautiously, Walter tests out his voice, calls out and asks, "Hello." He is surprised by two things. First, that his voice was already so rusty and throaty from just one day of solitude. And secondly, and more importantly, that the sound of his voice does not carry at all. It's instantly swallowed up by the same damn darkness that's been surrounding him since he first woke. This realization sends a chill down his spine, and he tries to distract himself by talking himself into an attempt at sleep. After some hours spent laying there in the too quiet darkness, he finally succumbs to a deep, dreamless sleep. Waking up in the black is just as disorienting the second time. And that's not all that stays the same on Walter's second day in the well. Wherever he is, he walks just as long as he did the day before, only stopping when his body can go no further. He shouts a few times, but eventually gives it up as his voice is instantly absorbed, and he decides that his energy should be saved for his journey rather than needless yelling. This goes on for a while. Days cycle into months, months into years, or so Walter thinks. He doesn't really know. After all, in fact, he's made the decision to delude himself into believing that his perception of time is so messed up that it's really only been a few days. He tells himself this to quiet the sick feeling deep in his stomach that grows stronger with every step. Finally, he gives up. He stops walking and sits, then collapses backward onto the floor, staring up at what should be a sky or ceiling, but in reality is just more darkness. Eventually, his breathing stops, and the quiet, dark world he found himself in is truly silent once again, without even the sound of Walter's heartbeat for the blackness to absorb. And that is the end of Walter's story. Story 2. Zero Sum. The vault is open. Fish has some flashbangs he snagged from when he was in Special Forces. He tosses one through the open door. We cover our ears. Inside, civilians are sprawled out on the ground. Powder hangs in the air. The windows are bleached. Those people depositing their checks today are writhing on the floor. The guard's up against the wall just inside the door. His hands are over his face, but I can see his 1,000-yard stare through his open fingers. Garrett puts one in his temple. The tellers were protected by the glass, but not much. One of the girls has her hands over her ears, and she's mouthing to herself. Ryan bolts the door. Bev zip-ties everyone on the ground. I go to the glass door separating the tellers from the main floor. I pull the trigger twice. The window's only a bulletproof mimic. I kick in the remaining pieces and head right. Bev follows me in and goes left. On the fucking ground, she screams a couple of thumps and a choked whine. She's taking down the tellers. Fisher flanks me down the hall. Ryan and Garrett stick by the door, waiting to let us know when the cops show. The flashbang set off the silent alarm, but we knew that the vault will take less than 3 minutes, and as long as we're in the car before more than one cruiser pulls up, we'll outrun them on the highways. The safe opens for 15 seconds at 9 a.m. exactly. If you have an access card, I pull out the counterfeit we made. The pens slide out and the vault opens. Everything sounds quiet behind us. A block of bills wrapped in sheet plastic lies on the table. I slit the plastic and we get to work. It's something like for 100,000. As we're finishing, we hear it echoing down the hall into the vault. 2 gunshots rippling off the tile. Then, coughing screams, my heart clenches. Fish is already pulling out his piece again as he moves back into the hallway. There's broken glass spread through the hall from the door. As we edge around the corner to the main floor, I can see Bev sitting against the far wall. She's still awake, but she's breathing hard. Garrett is face up in the middle of the room, his blood pooling around a zip-tied woman beside him. Bev, coughing in pain, sees us and points. Bang, the sound drives me to my knees, clutching my ears. Fisher falls next to me, his head bouncing off the marble floor. I look around and see Ryan coming out from behind the shattered glass door. He's frowning. Out of my left ear, I can hear Bev screaming something. I reach back for my gun and asterisk, 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 asterisk. You motherfucker. Bev screamed as another shot rang through the vast room. A few of the trust people whimpered, and Mark slumped over next to Fisher. She was grunting in pain and anger, reaching for her gun, as Ryan came across the room and shot her through the top of the head. The room was silent after that. Andrew Ryan pulled a handheld radio from his belt. Cruiser 91. This is Ryan. 91 here. Are they all dispatched? They are. You two better get here before someone else gets the inbound. The crackling stopped. Ryan crossed the hall and picked up the 2 duffel bags. He had only been planning it for a few days. The take was actually worth more than his crew was. Price and Hindley get the glory. They come in as he leaves and make claim to the soon-to-be famed police takedown. He saw the police lights outside the window as he swung the front doors wide. He grinned, waiting to see the 2 of them rushing up the stairs to pass him wordlessly as he left. Freeze. The cruiser in the street had its doors wide open, the officers crouched behind them, their pistols aimed at him. Still walking, he barely had time to wonder what they thought they were doing before he saw the numbers on the cruiser's hood. 371. They fired. Story 3. Be careful. In recent weeks, a rash of murders has swept the city. Police are calling it the work of a serial killer, but when questioned about this statement, police spokesman Daniel Garfield refused to comment. All authorities will say at the moment is that each victim received a voicemail minutes before they were killed saying, quote, "Be careful." Once again, be careful. Police are still investigating the events and ask that anyone with information about these murders contact them immediately. You shut off the TV. Sick of bad news for the night. A glance at the clock on the DVR tells you that it's 4 minutes past 3. You sigh. Your wife won't be home for another hour at least. She's been working the night shift all week. Tired of waiting, you crawl into bed and fall asleep, thinking of the recent murders. Don't you have a friend on the police force? You should really call him sometime. Tomorrow morning, you awake next to your wife. She must have come home sometime. Last night, poor thing looks dead tired. You decide to just let her sleep. Getting up and around, you flick on the radio in time to hear "Murder struck again last night." The same message was found on the voicemail of the latest victim. Police are continuing investigation. Off again goes the radio, still raving about that serial killer. You grumble your way to the coffee machine. When the phone starts to ring, you freeze. What if? No, it couldn't be. That kind of thing happens to other people. Nonetheless, your hand shakes just slightly as you reach for the handset. You pick up the phone, your hand shaking even worse now as the connection comes through. You hear a voice on the other end. Take a breath as your blood freezes in your veins. Hey, I was starting to wonder if you would ever pick up. It's Jim, your friend on the police force. You breathe a sigh of relief. Thank God. Sorry, I was busy, you mutter, feeling ridiculous, not to mention slightly embarrassed for thinking it could possibly be the killer. Listen, the force gave me the day off, so I was wondering if you wanted to go out for breakfast, just us guys. Like old times, I want to get my mind off of these murders. But look, my car is in the shop, so if you could come pick me up in 10. Sure, you agree. You exchange goodbyes and hang up. It's about a 10-minute drive to his house anyway, so you scribble a hasty note to your wife and head out the door. You get held up in traffic on the way and end up arriving about 15 minutes late. You walk to the front door, mentally preparing an apology as you tap the bell. No one answers, so you ring again, wondering if you hit it fully the first time, still receiving no answer after a third attempt. You try the doorknob. Unlocked, you twist the cold metal and step inside cautiously, calling for Jim. The smell punches you right in the gut slightly metallic and sickly sweet. The thick miasma seems to be coming from the kitchen. Following your nose, you step into the room. The walls are painted red with what must be blood, and the floors are swimming with the stuff. Jim and his wife lay sprawled on the floor, their chests, arms, and legs cut to pieces. You throw up violently, staring around in horror. Then your eye catches something. A red message light blinks slowly on the phone. You don't play the message. You already know what it says. Bolting out the front door, your only thought is to get out of the house as fast as you can. Forget the cops. You just want to be away from the grisly image of your best friend lying dead on his own floor. You head to the one and only place you can think of. Back home, you slam the door shut behind you as you come in the door, tracking bloody footprints across the floor. You reach the kitchen and call for your wife, but your voice catches mid-yell. Your tracks aren't the only ones you hear the click of. The lock behind you, as your wife's voice says gently, "I just wanted you to be careful." Story 4, Witness. I am currently sitting in front of my computer, scared witless. Any moment now I am going to be killed. Today a friend of mine told me a story. His aunt had taken care of him since he was a small boy, and she told him last night about how his parents died. He did a very fair imitation of her. I knew them both pretty well. They were doing mission work in some nasty little South American country when a man burst into the mission hospital one night, terrified out of his mind. He told them that his sister had been killed by Huerto Blanco, and that he was certain that it was coming for him next. What is a Muerto Blanco? Apparently, it was some sort of bogeyman, something like that dumb chupacabra or whatever. They called it the White Death or the White Girl because it was the soul of someone who hated life so much that they came back in their shrouds to kill those who told of them. The man had been told about the vengeful spirit by his sister hours before her death. It was a girl with dead, black eyes that wept bile. The thing moved without ever actually moving its legs, and it stalked its victims back to their homes. Now, if you weren't already aware that this thing was following you, once you got back to your house, it would start knocking on your door. She has to repeat this on any mirror or door between you and her. You can try to outrun her, but she's faster than the fastest man, and if you leave your home while she's knocking on your door, she won't be so courteous when she catches up to you. Now the man was certain that this thing had killed his sister, that he had tried to tell the police, but they would not listen. Next, he tried to tell his priest, but the priest turned him away, and he saw that the thing was following him now. That's right. I forgot about that. It can only get you if you tell someone else about it, or you saw it kill someone else. The man, after finishing his tale, stole a car from the mission and was never seen again. Apparently, his mother and father had immediately called his aunt about this. When it happened, they were found in the morning, skinned and dismembered. Their bodies were covered in tiny, childlike handprints. His aunt was really drunk the night before and had told him about that. He told me this story early in the morning today at school, before the cops arrived. His aunt had been murdered that night. I called him later that night, and he told me that he was being chased by someone, and now they were knocking on his door. I told him to stop shitting me. He held the phone away from his face for a minute, and I could hear slow, deliberate knocking. A moment later, I heard the door rip from its hinges and the dying screams of my friend. Then a little girl's voice spoke over the line. "Witness." I hung up, 3 minutes ago. Someone started knocking on my door. She has to knock 28 times on my front door, 28 times on the mirror in the hall, and another 28 times on the door to my bedroom. She's doing it slowly. I think she wants to scare me some more. Let me know that my death is just moments away. I will not run. I couldn't get to my car in time anyway. She started knocking on my bedroom door a minute ago. She should be done any moment. Nice knowing you guys. It's been fun. Witness, Story 5. I think I'm being followed. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I think I am being followed. You see, I live in a relatively small town with a population of 1,476 or so. Birch Run, they call it. Nothing's ever really happens there, aside from the occasional fire or robbery committed by some hillbilly American with the brain capacity of a goat, which is why the town was shook when not only the first murder in 36 years occurred, but the first serial killer in a really, really long time appeared. Daniela Moorbrook was the first, a pretty little thing with silky golden spun hair and great, big blue eyes that looked as if the ocean had been captured inside of them, and a cute little button nose that tied her adorable face together. She wanted to be a movie star, and most likely would have made it into the industry if she hadn't been found stuffed into a storm drain early one Saturday morning. Devastated was her family's word of the week, but everyone could tell they were relieved to have one less mouth to feed. The second was Jake Howard, football star extraordinaire, your typical high school fuck boy, stylish, tousled brown hair, green eyes, and freckles scattered over his handsome face, a small yet masculine nose, kissable lips, and straight white teeth. But not once they found him in the old barn, face smashed in by a bloody mallet that laid beside his broken body, his once perfect teeth strewn around him. His orthodontist would have been horrified. There were quite a few in between, but the one that hit closest to home was the seventh. Her name was Matilda Crawler, and she was my best friend. She wasn't particularly pretty, but she outshone me in every way. Her auburn hair was stunning compared to my own mousy brown locks. Just the same as her green eyes glistened far more than my brown ones ever had. Her sun-kissed skin was so much more vibrant than my pale, blotchy skin, and we both knew it, although she always used to try and reason with me and say it gave me character, and whenever I was down she'd always attempt to cheer me up by saying that she knew I was going to impact the world someday. Oh, I already knew I was going to impact the world, just not in the way she anticipated. She saw me one night at around 10 o'clock. Having dinner with victim number 6, the day before the missing person flyers with his face pasted on them went up all over town. That's why she had to go. They found her strangled to death on the side of the highway. The policewoman who found her tried to console me by suggesting that she probably got too close to the serial killer and found something out. I know, I responded. That's where things started turning sour. When I was walking home this afternoon, I had the distinct feeling that someone was behind. Emmy, my name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I think I am being followed. When I got home and went inside, I swear I heard a rustle in the bushes as someone sat in them, watching me. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I think there's someone watching me. I tried to brush it off, but I am certain there's someone outside my house in a navy blue uniform with a gun and a desire to see me behind bars. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I think there's someone outside my house. I'm writing this out now, so just in case I get caught, people know. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I'm scared. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I'm sorry. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I made a horrible mistake. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and behind the sweet, shy girl facade I put on, there's a monster. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I've murdered 7 people over the course of 12 months. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I can hear someone knocking on the door. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and the knocks are getting louder and angrier, and I don't think they're here to put me behind bars. My name's Abigail Stitcher. I'm 15 years old, and I think I'm going to die tonight. Story 6. The Quantum Man. Jonathan Felix sat back in the chair after affixing the final electrodes to his skull. He currently reclined in one of the most expensive private scientific investments in the world, and today was the fruition of his and many others' efforts. The aim of the project was to open a human being's mind and allow them to perceive one of the spatial dimensions above the mediocre 3. The actual result was still a point of debate, but it was suspected that the individual would be able to study all possible universes that could be created from his actions, and then choose the one that he wished to follow, a man whose every action would be perfect as he had already witnessed the results. Felix had jumped at the opportunity because he was young and headstrong, in his early 20s, and brilliant in the field of quantum mechanics. He was relishing the opportunity to apply the usually theoretical aspects of his craft to a physical medium. He gave the final thumbs up to the text behind the safety glass, and they activated the first stages of the machine. A microphone in the room relayed his words as the process started. If I have seen further than others, it is because I have stood on the shoulders of giants. Imitation was the highest form of flattery, he thought with a grin. The chair reclined back until it became a flat table, and a large rotating dome lowered down to encompass his entire body. Within the dome, there was a complex crystalline structure lining the inside. He focused on the facets of the crystals and noticed that they had started to morph, shifting in ways his mind just could not understand. He started to feel lightheaded and dizzy. His sight was suddenly filled with explosions of light, and his body started to spasm. Reading his health signs in the control room, the engineers instantly halted the operation. A medic ran and checked the vitals of Felix and was pleased to find a weak, yet consistent heartbeat. Felix opened his eyes a couple of minutes later. He looked up at the doctor and suddenly jerked up as he realized where he was. What happened? I don't feel any different. The doctor smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Any landing you can walk away from, right? The doctor turned to walk away, caught his ankle on a trailing cable, tripped forwards, and cracked his forehead against the corner of the table. His head twisted to a sickening angle. Reset, the doctor turned to walk away, caught his ankle on a trailing cable, tripped forwards, and then was grabbed from behind as Felix threw himself from the chair, stopping him inches from the table corner. Felix collapsed and threw up. His hands shaking, he realized that he had just perceived 2 universes and had actively chosen the one he wanted. He smiled at the doctor. I did it. I can see them. I can see them all. Felix's smile faded. He now saw 2 universes, both the same as far as he was aware. Suddenly, a third, a fourth, a fifth blossomed in his mind. He could see all the possibilities that he was capable of. Some he didn't wish to see. His mind began to fracture. Felix grabbed the medic and in an act of unnatural rage plunged his thumbs into the poor attendant's eyes. Reset. Felix looked despairingly into the eyes of the medic and started to scream, refusing to stop even when bubbles of blood foamed around the corners of his mouth. Reset. Felix grabbed the table leg and forcefully head-butted the corner, only achieving his goal of shattering his skull on the 4th strike. Reset. Felix sat on the floor, experiencing all the potential evil that he was physically capable of. His body shook as he was. Racked sobs of horror, he grabbed the collar of the medic and drew them face to face. Too far, he screamed. His eyes blurred for a moment and started to turn yellow and shriveled. At the same moment his hair changed to the purest white. Felix, in his final moments, became aware of a magnitude of universes bearing down on him, and he would have to live through every single one. His grip slipped and his mind was lost to the abyss. Reset. Story 7. The song, Come, traveler, you are weary. Rest a while here. It's perfectly fine. Take a load off your feet and get something to eat. You look like you could use a good meal. You are a wanderer, far from home. Am I right? How did I know? Well, everyone who comes through here is like you. Why else would you come to a place like this, except if you were on the road, lost, seeking something? But what is it you seek? My name. My name doesn't matter. I'm just a simple old woman who enjoys giving travelers such as yourself some comfort. But if you insist, you may call me Lydia. And while you rest, traveler, let me tell you a story. I've seen much of the world, as you yourself hoped to one day, and I've collected some good ones. Do you know of those the Greeks call the sirens? Those 3 enchantresses, gifted and cursed with the voices of angels. Their singing would consume a man entirely and drive him to his own destruction. If you know their song, of course, for anyone who hears it is doomed never to tell of its beauty, at least in this world. The ultimate mystery, a sound that is lethal. How can one discover what such a song sounds like? Even the dread Gorgon's gaze may be dared through a mirror, but a sound is either heard or not, and to hear it is to hear no more forever. But I know it. What about Odysseus? Yes, he did listen to the song and survive, but he was never able to reproduce it. No mortal could, and as he entered old age, his mind forgot its details. He never passed it along. In fact, Jason and his bold crew also escaped the clutches of the song, but only because the music of Orpheus overwhelmed it. He alone, of anyone before or since, had a skill in music to rival those 3, but none of his crew heard the notes coming from above. Where was I? Oh, right. Many of the great bards of old have claimed to know the song. They have said it was about knowledge, about power, about beauty. One of your more recent poets claimed the siren sang of weakness, and that only the sailor to whom they sang could rescue them. And they were all wrong, and they were all right. See, one cannot know the words to the song, One cannot know them, because there are none. The song of the siren is a tune, a melody. The oldest, I can't tell you how I know. That would spoil the surprise. I can tell you that what I say is true. You'll just have to trust me for now. I'll explain later. My, you are a curious one. That's why you came here, though, why you came to this place, this dismal corner of the world, to learn, to seek knowledge, to see the things that stare at you from the darkness, to know what goes bump in the night. Well, I can tell you, but you'll have to listen to me first. Just come along, and I will give you the knowledge you seek. The song is nothing but a melody, the oldest, saddest, sweetest melody ever heard. On this earth, it works into your head, takes your desires, your hopes, whatever you most long for, and uses them to draw you in. It promises redemption to the guilty conscience, love to the lonely heart, and knowledge to the hungry mind. The minds of mortals are wonderful things. They are powerful enough to take this tune and thoroughly convince themselves they are hearing words, and that those words happen to fulfill even those desires they cannot admit to themselves, and yet at the same time they are feeble enough to be sucked in by their wants, to lose sight of all else, including their own impending destruction. But can you really blame them? Can you really blame yourself? No, I still can't tell you how I know. All in good time, but I have so many other stories to tell. Just keep walking with me. Follow me, and I will fill your head with such wondrous tales. Your thirst for truth, for knowledge, will finally be satisfied just a little farther. So come along, traveler, just one more step.